The obsidian halls of the Krill battleship hummed with an energy that made human skin crawl. Coraline stood before the massive viewport, her reflection ghostly against the backdrop of dying stars. She wore the ceremonial robes of a peace-offering white silk that felt more like a burial shroud than wedding attire. Somewhere in the depths of this alien vessel, preparations were being made for a marriage she never asked for, to a being she'd never met. Commander Jox of the Krill Dominion was a legend whispered in fear across human colonies. A warrior whose kill count numbered in the thousands, whose tactical brilliance had crushed 3 rebellions before breakfast. The Krill were a species built for war 7 feet tall, with obsidian exoskeletons and eyes that glowed like hot coals. They valued strength above all else, and Jox embodied that principle perfectly. The marriage was political necessity dressed in ceremony. Earth had lost the war. The terms of surrender included trade agreements, territorial concessions, and one human bride for the Dominion's greatest warrior. Coraline had volunteered, sparing some other soul this fate. She told herself it was noble. In the sleepless nights aboard the transport ship, she wondered if it was simply suicide with extra steps. The doors hissed open behind her. Coraline didn't turn. She'd learned that showing fear to the Krill only excited them. "You are the human." The voice was like gravel grinding against steel, speaking through a translation implant that made every word sound vaguely threatening. "I am Coraline Webb," she replied, keeping her voice steady. "Your bride?" Jox moved into her peripheral vision, and even prepared as she was, Coraline's breath caught. He was massive, his exoskeleton decorated with kill markings that formed intricate patterns across his chest and arms. 3 scars ran down the left side of his face, mark of honor among his kind. His eyes, burning amber, fixed on her with an intensity that felt like a physical weight. "You are small," he observed, circling her slowly. "Fragile. I was told humans were weak, but this seems excessive." "Appearances can be deceiving," Coraline said, though her voice wavered slightly. Jax stopped in front of her. "Can they? We shall see. The ceremony begins at moonrise. Do not embarrass me, human." The weeks that followed were a study in humiliation. Coraline was paraded before Krill nobility, displayed like a trophy. Jox treated her with cold indifference, speaking to her only when protocol demanded it. She was given quarters adjacent to his lajuris by human standards, but clearly designed to remind her she was property, not partner. But Coraline was not one to accept defeat quietly. She studied. The Krill had vast libraries, and while they assumed humans too primitive to understand their military texts, Coraline devoured every tactical manual, every historical account of their battles. She trained in secret, pushing her body beyond its limits in the ship's lower gravity chambers. The turning point came during a Dominion fleet exercise. Pirates saw, perhaps rebels, sat the convoy. Alarms shrieked through the corridors as Coraline ran toward the bridge. She found chaos. A boarding party had breached the hull, and Krill warriors were falling back against an enemy using guerrilla tactics they hadn't anticipated. Jox was in the center of it all, fighting with brutal efficiency, but even he couldn't be everywhere. Coraline watched the tactical display, her mind processing patterns the Krill missed. Without thinking, she grabbed a communication panel. "Commander," she shouted. "They're flanking through the ventilation system, Section 7. Collapse it and funnel them toward. Silence, human." Jox roared, but one of his officers, desperate, followed her suggestion. The enemy poured into a kill zone. the tide turned. When the smoke cleared, Jox found Coraline on the bridge, surrounded by holographic tactical displays she'd somehow accessed. She'd coordinated 3 separate counterattacks, saving dozens of Krill lives. "What are you?" he demanded, something new in his voice. Not quite respect, but no longer dismissal. "Someone who pays attention," Coraline replied, meeting his burning gaze without flinching. From that day, everything changed. Jox began including her in strategic meetings. The Krill officers, who'd once sneered at the human bride, started listening when she spoke. Coraline's insights, born from a different way of thinking, complemented Krill aggression with human cunning. But it was during the siege of Vermilion Station that Coraline became something more than human. The station was a Krill stronghold under attack by a combined enemy fleet. Jox led the defense, but they were outnumbered 5-1. As the battle raged, an enemy weapon, something forbidden by every galactic treaty, detonated near the command deck. Pure concentrated energy designed to obliterate organic matter. Jox threw himself over Coraline as the wave hit. She felt his body burning, disintegrating, felt his final thoughts through their newly formed bond. "I should have valued you sooner." But Coraline didn't die. The energy that should have destroyed her instead changed her. The weapon had been designed to target Krill biology, and in protecting her, Jox had somehow become part of her at a molecular level. The energy fused with her grief, her rage, her desperate desire to survive and make his sacrifice mean something. When the light faded, Coraline stood alone. Her body crackled with power, her eyes glowing with an inner fire. She could feel the weapon's energy coursing through her veins, could feel Jox's tactical genius now part of her consciousness. The Krill survivors watched in terror and awe as Coraline Webb, the fragile human bride, stepped into the void of space without a suit. She moved like lightning, her hands channeling the same energy that had tried to kill her. Enemy ships exploded at her touch. She tore through their lines like a goddess of war incarnate when the last enemy vessel fled. Coraline returned to the station. The Krill fell to their knees not in surrender, but in worship. She had become what they called a battle deity, something that appeared in their oldest myths, a being of pure warrior essence, transcendent and terrible. But as Coraline looked at her glowing hands, felt the power thrumming through her transformed body, she felt only emptiness. She'd gained the strength to never be a victim again, but lost the only being who'd learned to see her as an equal. The marriage of obligation had indeed turned deadly, just not in the way anyone expected.